Howdy there, internet people. It's Ron again. I'm just kidding. I'm doing a little takeoff on one of my favorite YouTubers, Bo of the Fifth Column, who focuses mostly on politics. He always starts out his videos by saying, "It's me." Hi, howdy there, internet people. It's me again. I'm starting a vlog or video series. Then the goal is by sharing my story. My journey to finding effective therapy for mental health issues, to help other people along the way who are struggling with various issues. It doesn't have to be any particular one. And I hope I can give y'all some insight, and maybe by sharing some lessons I've learned about it, maybe I can help other people along the way, because no one should have to go through what I did to finally find effective therapy. It's quite the journey. So I wasn't quite sure where to start. I've been postponing getting this started, getting a vlog, and then in the near future here, I'll be starting a podcast. So I'll also be sharing a lot of running stories because they tie into a lot of my mental health journey. Number one thing is that running has always been free therapy for me. It's saved my life. I've been running since I was a kid, and part of the reason I've been postponing getting this started is I wasn't quite sure where to start. And I think the best way to do that is by starting with sharing a little bit about the two worst days of my life. Two absolutely worst days of my life. I've run 17 Boston marathons. I ran 17 straight Boston marathons from 2001 to 2017. And that includes, of course, the marathon bombings in 2013. And I understand that before that race, that was my 13th Boston, I had been struggling for decades with severe depression, and I wasn't officially diagnosed because I had never officially gotten help. Just some little scattershot brief counseling here and there, which doesn't do much of anything really. But I was eventually diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety disorder, ADD, and I'd been suicidal off and on for many years, and if not outright suicidal, I was very self-destructive for a long time, with a lot of self-medicating with a lot of heavy drinking and pot smoking. So let's cut to the chase. So I go into Boston 2013, just kind of limping along as far as my mental health goes, very self-destructive, and again, at times suicidal. And the Boston Marathon was and still is a very central thing in my life. So that was one of the few things that kept me going through the year, was looking forward to the next year's Boston Marathon. And hold on to that thought. That's going to play a role in helping people get through various crises. So we line up, and it's, normal Boston Marathon, exciting stuff. It's a big deal. It's probably the most famous foot race in the world, and very special event for me and a lot of other people. And as everyone knows, a few hours after we started, the bombs went off, and 3 people were killed that day. Martin Richard, Lindsay Liu, and Crystal Campbell. And a few days later, the bombers assassinated Sean Collier, an MIT cop. Well, it was about a perfect day to run. No one ever imagined that kind of thing happening. So, and again, Boston was one of the few things keeping me afloat at all, keeping me going. So I get, I think when I first heard some whispers, was about a mile or two from the finish, and I'm thinking, well, probably just a transformer exploded or something, and by the time I get there, they'll have it all under control. And come up on Massachusetts, coming up Commonwealth Avenue to cross over. Well, for years we crossed over Massachusetts Avenue, and then they changed the course a few years before to where you go under that little tunnel, very short little tunnel, a couple hundred yards probably, goes under Mass Avenue. So they changed the course to go under that. And I come up and all that's blocked. And there's thousands of runners congregating, or at least hundreds, very large crowd and spectators, and everyone's just kind of milling around, and just pure chaos. So me being me, I sneak past 2 police barricades and continue my run. And I notice that for the first time ever in all my Boston marathons, there's no runners and no spectators. And I'm running down Commonwealth, about to turn go right on Hereford, left on Boylston, and you're home. And the National Guard is always there, just for crowd control and everything, because there's, along the whole course, there's probably 1 million spectators. Just downtown Boston itself, at least a few 100,000 spectators. So massive crowds, a lot of noise, and the National Guard's always welcome. So they're always there just for crowd control, just kind of keep people from running out on the course and everything. And it's all cool. Only this time they're standing, as I described in a video several years ago, and this time they're standing there and they're blocking where I'm about to turn from Commonwealth onto Hereford. And there's about 30 or 40 of them, and they're blocking the road. And I just see that, I just figure, I'll just shoot the gap between them, because I wasn't sure still exactly what was going on, because it was just pure chaos by that point. But by the time I was coming up on them, there was a lot of smoke coming over from Boylston Street. You could see it and you could smell it, and people just clearing out of Boylston Street fast. So I'm going to just shoot the gap, and they step in front of me. They're just stunned that I was running up on them, and they inform me, we can't let you finish today. And then they tell me more about what happened and everything. So the adventure began. As I'm talking to them, I'm standing on the curb basically, and as I'm talking to them, the rescue convoy starts coming through. If you ever see the movie Patriots Day, you'll see after the bombings, it's a little while after the bombings, there's a little convoy, about 6 big black SUVs that turn onto Boylston Street, carrying all the VIPs like the governor and the head of the FBI in Boston, and all the bigwigs. And those guys, they passed me just a few seconds before they turned onto Boylston Street. So basically the whole rescue convoy is going through everything. About 140 ambulances, police cars, a lot of unmarked cars, which were probably FBI vehicles or maybe CIA. It went on and on and on. So a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, which went on for hours. Hours and hours and hours. So, the upshot of that is that, in addition to the, at that time, my undiagnosed severe depression and anxiety disorder and ADD, throw a bunch of PTSD on top of that. And I'll mention probably the first lesson that I can give anyone, just by example. I think a lot of times we all have to learn, we just have to learn the hard way. Well, I always call PTSD the gift that keeps on giving. It's nothing like you see in the movies and TV. Movies and TV, it's annoying. They almost always get it wrong because they make it a big dramatic thing, like, you know, someone gets upset and goes and shoots up the post office or whatever, and it's really nothing like that. It's, generally speaking, a lot of low level stuff that just creeps up on you and starts triggering you. Well, the big mistake I made was trying to handle it myself. Now, such a huge event like that, it's pretty common for it to take a few days, or in some cases even a few weeks or a few months, to really start sinking in with people the enormity of it. And that was the case with me. Of course, we all knew it was a big deal and everything, but I still remember a friend a day or two later messaging me and saying, "Ron, don't try to do this alone." And I tried to do it alone, handling PTSD on top of all that other stuff. Of course, I did not know officially for a few more years that I had PTSD. After about a year or so, I was kind of figuring it out, thinking that maybe I did. But the bottom line is I tried to handle it myself. And this is part of why now we got something like 20 veterans a day killing themselves. I'm sure that statistic goes up and down. But whether it's 10 or 20 or 25, it's too many because it's something that can be prevented. And I really believe that a big reason for that is they try to handle it themselves, especially being military men and women. And I've heard too many times people talking about them. Oh, he's tough. He'll be okay. He's tough. She's tough. They'll handle it. People coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff. And understand too, it doesn't have to be veterans. It can be people that were in a car wreck. It can be people that were in the Boston Marathon bombings. It can be people who were raped. Any number of things can cause PTSD. And also there's a lot of different levels of it, a lot of different intensities of it, etc., etc. But the bottom line being that it's got nothing to do with how tough you are. And that's getting a lot of people killed. This whole myth that gets propagated, again, especially with military people, like, well, he's a Marine, he's tough, he'll be all right. And it's got nothing to do with tough. I've been an athlete since I was a young kid. I've been through, there's that. I've been through a lot of really bad shit in my life. I'm pretty fucking tough. Excuse my French there. I'll try to limit my curse words. But, I'm probably tougher than the average person. And I can tell you getting tough is what, or trying to be tough is what gets people killed. And that is part of the reason that I didn't avoid seeking help, but I just kept postponing because I thought, well, I'm tough, I can handle it and all that. And things just kept on going downhill. So I come back from the bombings, and that happened April 15, 2013. And I go right back to my self-medicating with a lot of booze and a lot of pot. And, no doubt the booze is much more damaging than pot. And this on a nightly basis. Basically, as soon as I got home from work, I'd start drinking and drink well into the night, every night. And at the same time, at the time I had a gun, and the thought was always in my head just about every night, not always, but frequently in my head, well, yeah, one of these nights I'm going to just go ahead and grab that gun and finish it off, So I was on, it's a Nine Inch Nails song called Mr. Self-Destruct. I was on that path for sure. I'd been trying to destroy myself. I'd been working very hard on destroying myself for a long time. Because I'd already had a lot of loss. Lost my best friend in the universe, James, in 2005. A few years later, my mom died. I was very close to her. 11 months after she died, my father died, who I finally got to really talk to him and know him the last year he was alive. So as those losses accumulated, and I didn't have really much of a support group, as those losses accumulated, then I just depended more and more on Boston Marathon to kind of, as my current therapist says, it became my new best friend over the years. Everything revolved around that. So I get back from Boston, and I still had my dog Pretty Girl, this rescued pit bull that I had rescued and rehabbed. She'd been used for fighting, a little red-nosed pit bull, again named Pretty Girl, and she got me through. Dogs just know. We had a very special bond to begin with because we'd been through so much together. But then she knew. Dogs just know that there's something wrong. So she really kind of doubled up on her support. And really, she was unofficially an emotional support dog. There's no doubt she was an emotional support dog. Got me through. And then on July 8th, she had a brief illness and a surgery, and then slid downhill badly. July 8th, 2013, less than 3 months after the bombings, Pretty Girl died. And that was probably the absolute rock bottom for me. And this is where, this is where the bombings were a tectonic shift, a real turning point for me, because that shook me up enough. That combined with the loss of Pretty Girl shook me up enough where, plus I was getting urged by other people to seek help. And this is getting long. I apologize for that, but I'll edit later. Meanwhile, I was focused on the 2014 Boston Marathon. And that's a big part of what kept me going. I had something to shoot for. I had something to look forward to. So for a while there, as bad a shape as I was in mentally and emotionally, uh, I didn't really want to kill myself for a while because I had to cross that finish line the next year, the finish line that was denied to me. And that's very important too. Number one, don't try to do this by yourself. Any mental illness, whether it's just depression, and I say just depression is never to be taken lightly, or whether it's PTSD, any level of it, whether it's just some mild PTSD you might have or severe, anything in between. Don't try to tough it out like some of these soldiers do and they end up killing themselves. It's horrible and very preventable. But see, that gave me something to look forward to, something to look ahead to, which prevented me, God, a little too real there, prevented me from killing myself for a year anyway. And something I started doing too, and this is, we all need things to connect to, things to keep us focused or maybe even distract us or whatever, things that are positive that we can latch onto and help keep us going. One of them, a few days after Boston, I think it was just like a couple of days. Anyway, a friend of mine at my old apartment complex, she had given me some of these American flags. It was one 4th of July, like the year before 4th of July. She saw me and Pretty Girl out walking, and she asked if Pretty Girl was patriotic. And I said, yeah, Pretty Girl loves America. And she said, well, I have some flags for her. So these little American flags, she gave me a bunch of those. So I've had to buy some new ones in the intervening time, but I started running with the flag every day. And initially it was just going to be for a few days, but then when I didn't run with one, people always asked, where's your flag at? We love seeing your flag. So it became this really uplifting thing for me and other people. And something that was amazing when people would ask, hey, I just want to ask you, why do you run with your flag every day? And I told them, as soon as I started telling them, well, Boston bombings, I was there, and it's just something that keeps me determined, that we're not going to bow down to terrorism and all that good stuff. But it became a real thing. And eventually it was almost a requirement. So I started doing that several weeks after the bombings. Finally got my finisher medal. What they did, they just calculated what our finish time would be. And this kind of became my talisman. I don't really believe in good luck or superstition, but it's something tangible, as my therapist said, something you can actually touch, things you can actually see and feel and smell. Those are things that can help keep you grounded, especially if you're having panic attacks or getting triggered with your PTSD or things like that. These are things that help me along. I keep this marathon medal in my little bag that I run with just about every time I run. And I don't know, like a security blanket thing. But you have to find things to keep you going. And something in the midst of this pandemic, we're 5 months into it now, 4 months into the lockdown stuff, which I'm in Texas, by the way. I'm in Dallas, Texas. So we're kind of at the epicenter of all that crap right now, and it's very hard on a lot of people, including myself, and it can get a little depressing at times, just the isolation and everything. But you have to draw on this. That's when you have to draw on inner resources. Too many people, and this goes even in normal times, too many people focus on getting a nice car, making a lot of money, having a big screen TV, or that, and events with friends. Concerts, football games, baseball games, basketball games, all that stuff. But see, all that is external stuff. All that is external. Same thing as we have seen this year. Not only was Boston Marathon postponed for the first time ever, it was completely canceled for the first time ever. They postponed it until September, and then they saw that just wouldn't be responsible to have it. Which, that's rough decision, but I totally agree with it. Those are all external things. And as I learned in those hours at 2013 Boston Marathon, all of that can be taken away from you in a matter of hours. All of that can just vanish. If you're relying on external things, cars and houses and events, and it's great to get together with friends and all that, but that's all external stuff. You have to figure out ways to draw on your internal resources. And that's where you'll find your way, where you'll draw your strength from, because that's going to be a lot more reliable than external stuff, which again can vanish fast. Just gathering my thoughts here for a second. And that's where you have to find, and in future videos I'll have more suggestions on how to find good therapy, effective therapy. I always stress effective. You have to find effective therapy. Cognitive therapy is one of the best ways. Medications certainly have their place. They've been a real lifesaver for a lot of people. When I first got into therapy, I tried Wellbutrin, which briefly helped me, but then it started kind of working against me. I'll address that more in another video. And I wasn't dependent on it, but maybe I was expecting too much from it. So I got completely frustrated, and I quit taking it cold turkey, which I found out later on that could be really dangerous to do that, because it did make things a lot worse when I did that. It's cognitive therapy that's what rewires your brain, rewires your thinking, and gets you on the right track. Again, medications, I'm not downplaying. They certainly have their place. They're a lifesaver for some people. You have to talk to your individual therapist about that. But when I see people all the time depending on them, I mean, really, their focus is more on the medication than it is on the actual rewiring the brain. Because the medication is not going to rewire your brain. The medication help you stabilize, help you keep stable throughout the day or the week, the month, etc. You have to, a lot of people have to do both, and that's fine. But you have to focus on inner resources. And just something I'll share. First of all, a quote from Yoda, Jedi Master. He told Luke Skywalker, "Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." And that's very true. And it's kind of goofy. It's a Star Wars reference, but you have to do that. You have to realize that we are luminous beings. We are light and energy, and you can draw on that. Again, more on that in future videos. But just real quick here, there's a few as a lot of people with mental health. By the way, I'm wearing my Boston Strong shirt. A lot of people with mental health issues, they, their inner voice often tells them, and mine does too, negative things, very negative things. My therapist calls that the negative talk, the propagandist. The propagandist that said, "Oh, you're not worth that. You're not good enough to do that. You can't do that. You're not good enough to do that." The propagandist is lying to you. There's also the best friend who can cut you a little too much slack. Say you're just like me, postponing getting my videos going and my podcast and all that. Uh, can tell you, oh, it's okay, we'll just do it tomorrow. And, well, that can go on indefinitely. Whereas you also have the wise one, the wise voice inside that has all the lessons you've learned that, okay, will be kind and merciful to you, saying, oh, okay, well, you were up late last night, so yeah, you can sleep in for another half hour, or whatever, because you don't have to be anywhere early. You have those competing voices. I think everyone has those competing voices, and you have to learn to filter all that out, being realistic. And as my therapist told me the other day, I need to listen more to the wise one, because I've come a long way in the last few years of my therapy. So I just want to leave you with that thought. I apologize for the length of this. I thought this was going to be a really short video. Future videos will probably be a bit shorter, depending on exactly what topic. But I wanted to get this started. My name is Ron McCracken, and again, I ran 17 straight Boston marathons, 2001, 2017. That really kept me going, and that's something we all have to find something. Now, although the event, like I said, is external, it can be taken away, like it has been. But things I can do in the meantime, like keep up my running every day and things like that, things I have control over, really can't be taken away. Well, barring some horrible accident with my running, but I want you to keep that in mind. Again, as we go along, I'll have different insights. I'll share more of my experience